So you'll find what I'm getting ready to cover here basically on page 1 of your handout here, which is basically the inside cover of it. It's just the overview section. It kind of lays out, there's sort of 3 phases that we're going through here: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. We'll go over those in a moment. And 2 sort of primary goals of the overall process. Overall, this is a 5-week process, 3 weeks being the time we're meeting, and then 2 weeks, weeks 4 and 5, so to speak, are for the individuals participating in the spirit circles and in our personal class to come up with projects, service projects they can do either out in the community at large or within UCO specifically. And then at the end of that, November 7th, I believe, is the date we're all going to get together and sort of have a celebration and celebrate what all of our service achievements were during the month of October leading up to that. So the work portion of this thing, the spirit circle portion of this thing, the spiritual gifts workshop that Tammy and I are facilitating, we'll go through 3 phases. Let me before I get to those, let me just kind of look at the top of that page that we want to have everybody thinking of your spiritual gifts as a 2-fold path. The first part of that is to begin the journey by discerning our gifts. This is an essential piece of our spiritual development, or how we are being in the world when we're doing whatever we're doing. Then we want to invite our participants into being stewards of those gifts that are identified during the course of the workshop experience there, and then create ways for them to ground their gifts into their lives in their doingness as a form of, as Reverend Cherie says, a form of sacred service. Well, once again, within the larger community outside of UCO, and also, and maybe even more specifically for our purposes, within the UCO community. So these can be anything. There's 5 forms of service that have been identified here. There's service to the divine, which is, kind of self-explanatory, where we're doing God's will, so to speak. There's service to ourselves as an instrument of the divine, a service to sentient beings in our lives, and a service to our local community, and the service to the global communities. So sort of multifaceted, multidimensional aspects to looking at how we can show up in sacred service, both, as I said, to the community at large, within the UCO community, and even more so, within our own micro communities, within our families and our friend networks, neighborhoods, etc. So the 3 weeks that we're meeting, each one of these weeks will focus on one of these 3 phases. In phase 1, week 1, which Tammy will be covering week 1 here in just a little bit. Phase 1 is what we're calling identity. This is where we're going to be focusing on how we identify the qualities of either spiritual gifts. And one of the ways that we're going to do this, in fact, the principal way into this, is for us to identify people that we admire, respect, and seek to emulate in our own lives. And this can be a wide berth of people, from historical figures who are already passed on, people that we might know personally in our own lives. I can think of, for me personally, my Little League baseball coach is somebody who was a real personal inspiration to me and still influences my life some 50 years down the line. But it could be public or a private person that we know, or someone that's in the sort of the public sphere, present or past, as I said. They don't have to necessarily be living if we're still getting inspiration from them. And then we're going to refine this list of characteristics of what will identify a person, and then we will identify 3 to 5 characteristics of this person that are personal inspirations to us, things that we seek to emulate and model in our own lives, things that inspire us to greater and greater action. That's one of the reasons why we admire these people and respect them, is because they inspire us. And so we want to identify the characteristics, the qualities of their beingness that are inspirational to us. And as we make this list of up to 5 people that we admire and respect, and we're making this little side list of 3 to 5 qualities of each of these people that we admire and respect about them, we'll start seeing patterns emerge. People that might seem, sort of disconnected at first will notice, oh, wow, I'm responding to this person because of, their quality of leadership. And here's this other person who I know personally in my life that's not a, world known figure, for example, and I'm responding to their leadership quality as well. So we'll start seeing themes emerge as we do this. And then we're going to be building upon that and refining that list even further into 3 to 5 qualities that we most want to emulate and express in our own lives. So that's the ultimate goal of that, using external people that we're inspired by, and then building this list of qualities, traits, characteristics, and then building that short list for ourselves of those qualities that we're seeking to emulate. We may already be doing that. It's not like this is a ground zero kind of thing where you're finding something new and then beginning to do that. You're probably already doing many of these things. You may have internalized them. This will help us to bring it to a conscious level. That's week 1. And then week 2 is what we're calling phase 2 is beingness. And this is where we're focusing on building on that identity portion, but getting into the beingness and in most sense, really connecting with our divine essence. So we're building on the identification of qualities from phase 1. And then we will identify and articulate our own core life values, which is different than these characteristics. So our core life values and guiding principles is sort of the big tent topic for week 2, phase 2. So in doing so, we will identify a list of 3 to 6 spiritual gifts that we believe we will embody and strive to express in our lives. And we should begin moving towards a stronger identification of what you believe your personal life purpose to be. Once again, this may be something that you already have articulated for yourself, or it may be something that you're kind of unconsciously doing, but the purpose of this is to bring it to a conscious level to where we can, speak about it on a level of, awareness, so to speak. Phase 3 is when we're getting more into the doingness. One of the things that I like to say is that it's not as important about what we're doing in the world. What's more important is who we're being when we're doing what we're doing in the world. So that's that really core part of phase 2. The beingness is focusing on that beingness, and then we show up that way in our beingness as we're performing our sacred service and our doingness. And so as we move towards our sacred service projects and our doingness, we'll be encouraged to think globally, right, while articulating a goal that we can work and act locally. So within either the ministry here at UCOH or in the local Austin community, whatever those projects, there's going to be a lot of latitude and a lot of autonomy for the people to identify and figure out how they can do it. The Spirit Circle group as a group may choose to do one project together, or they might, break up into smaller micro groups and everything. That'll be kind of left up to the groups to articulate that for themselves. So there's 2 goals here out of this whole process. The goal number 1 is to facilitate our understanding of the distinction between being and doing, with the goal of elevating our perspective from what you may do in the world to who you are being when you do what you do in the world, which is what I said a moment ago. So that's sort of a goal number 1. The secondary goal is to facilitate our ability to identify our own personal spiritual gifts and core values, while encouraging us to take meaningful action in our personal lives within the UCO community and ultimately the world at large, as we more ably embody, express, and render sacred service to all. Reverend Cherie's talk this morning about, that our every thought is a prayer. It's the same kind of thing, that once we're embodying this beingness on our part, then really we're performing sacred service in all of our encounters. It's not just a grand gesture. It can be something as random as, meeting somebody in the line at the grocery store and finding as the Course in Miracles says, a holy encounter. Every encounter is a holy encounter. So there's an opportunity for us to serve in those little nooks and crannies of our life. And it doesn't have to be a big grand gesture. We're just really showing up in our beingness.